So let's start with Tessa Jowell's Ask Me Anything. David Lammy has the first question.
Tessa, 8,000 Londoners a year die from tobacco-related causes. Do you regret making Formula One exempt from the ban on tobacco advertising when you were a minister?
I introduced two things when I was a minister. Appointed as Minister for Public Health, wholly committed to tackling health inequality. So I was the first minister specifically charged with tackling health inequality. What's the big driver of health inequality? It is poverty. What is the big killer that more poor people die from? It is tobacco-related diseases, which is why I focused on everything that I could do to reduce the number of people dying from tobacco. The whole question about Formula One was, it was a pretty shabby time, quite honestly, in that, well, I was the minister. I'd been a minister for 6 months. I was a minister negotiating. I had no idea as the negotiator that there were these other interests at play, in that the Labour Party had received a donation from Bernie Ecclestone. And so my concern was to, as quickly as possible, to get legislation in place, which had to be Europe-wide legislation. I went all around Europe negotiating the tobacco directive and succeeded in getting it passed. And in time, Formula One was obviously brought into that.
Let's move on. Sadiq Khan.
There are lots of things when Tony Blair was Prime Minister, which he did, which we're very proud of. The Minimum Wage, Human Rights Act, Sure Start. Is there anything in your career as a minister during those 10 years that you did that you regret?
There are things that I regret not making more resilient in the face of an incoming coalition government. And it may be a small thing in global policy. It's a big thing in young people's lives. And that was that the school sport programme that I was with Estelle Morris set up so that sport would be part of every child's life, was wound up by the incoming coalition government at the stroke of a pen. And I often wonder what more I could have done to make that more resilient.
But you've seen in our town centres the proliferation of gambling shops, people incurring these huge debts. They can bet £100 a spin, and you were responsible for the relaxation of the gambling laws in our country. Do you not regret that?
Not the relaxation, Sadiq. The 2005 Gambling Act, which I took through Parliament, was necessary because gambling legislation was so antiquated and out of date. Because I was so concerned about the proliferation of new forms of gambling.
Well, just on this.
Just a sec. Can I just say?
I know Diane wants to ask a related question.
Can I just finish the point? That I worked very closely with the Salvation Army, the Methodists, the organisations that help people who suffer from gambling addiction. I put in place the means by which betting machines could be controlled, the number, speed of play, and everything else.
Right.
My regret is that the government hasn't acted on that.
This.
Tessa, the 2005 Gambling Act, I'm quite familiar with it. I actually voted against it, and also I had to get involved in campaigning for years afterwards because of the proliferation of betting shops in places like Hackney. And there were two things about it which I think were particularly wrong. One was you changed the law used to say that in order to open another betting shop, you had to prove there was an unmet need. The 2005 Act, your Act, removed that provision in areas like Hackney and Tottenham. We have 7 or 8 betting shops. But the other thing is, why, Tessa, were you pushing for those super casinos? Actually, people fought back and you weren't able to have as many as you wanted. But why were you pushing for super casinos?
Please.
I mean, first of all, the Gambling Act, as I say, the tests that applied before did not offer protection from harm. The Gambling Act is based on public protection from harm, protection from for children, and keeping gambling crime-free. We have now, as one of the international experts said to me some years ago, the most highly regulated gambling industry in the world. It is my regret. It's not that the government did not use the means available to them, the incoming Tory government, to control machines in the house. Will you join my campaign, David, to ban sexist adverts on the tube?
Absolutely. Unfortunately, we're living in a London where sexual assaults are up, where rape is up. I asked the Prime Minister a question at the last